Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
Pleasant afternoon and good evening to everybody. Good morning and good afternoon, depending where you all are in this wonderful world. Hope everybody is doing good. Thanks again for tuning into the Water Zone Show. We appreciate that very much. I'm Rob Starr along with Miss Tara Mullally, and she's actually running an errand next door in the next office to get something out of the studio. She'll be right in here, but I hope everybody had a good week and good everything. And we're going to do a couple things a little bit different. Miss Chris Austin is off today. She's traveling. And what I thought we would do is our last week's guest was from ResNet, if you remember that, and tuned in. And we got into some pretty deep conversations, good ones. But time ran out, and so I didn't think that was fair that they couldn't answer the rest of the questions that us and some of the listeners put into us. So what we did is put the questions that came in, and we're going to go through those with you and update you on the rest of that, so we give ResNet a fair hearing out of that. They're good, great people, like working with them, and the topic is very deep and long, but anyway, we figured we'd get that squared away. So one of the questions that came in from our listening audience is, what is the process for submitting proposals for new and revised ResNet standards? And the response is, ResNet has a process in place that starts as simply as form found on the website, which is https://resnet.us about standards, and it starts the process that is reviewed by a committee to determine the steps to be taken and whether it is an amendment or to an existing standard or to complete overhaul is necessary. That work occurs to make the proposed change, and it goes to public comment. Those comments are reviewed, and then once the standard has been amended, it is set for release date so it can be implemented by everyone at the same time. If I remember, we got into that discussion as how can they submit proposals or modify some of the plans on that and the certifications. So that came in that. Tara, welcome.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. You had everything you need from the control room?
I did get everything I need from the control room. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your patience.
No problem. But we did start without you.
Of course you did, as you should.
As we should, yeah. So I owe you one. Next time I go out there to get something in the office, you can come back and chop in. So we're going through the questions and answers that were submitted. And we just talked about the process for submitting proposals for new and revised ResNet standards. If you have a copy of that, I believe.
I do believe, yep.
And your part is, how does ResNet address the requirements for home energy and water audits? And I'll let you respond to that.
If I understand the question properly, I think what is being asked is how we determine the methods and calculations for energy and water audits. We typically start with a well-designed formula for calculations that is tested and retested to make sure it's accurate. With energy, we have added those calculations into multiple different accredited software packages so raters can choose which suits them best. When the materials and appliances are added to the software model, the energy is calculated for the entire home and energy use. Carbon footprint and water usage are included in a report. Those formulas are developed with teams and are available to view in the release notes for all to see.
Yeah. So, these are interesting questions that some of the listeners call in. And, one of my things that I'd like to talk to residents about is, why are there so many, I'm just going to say it, but I'm not going to carry on the discussion about it. Why are there so many different organizations with different standards? It just gets crazy to have all these other entities in there throwing these procedures to all these new home builders or homeowners, and you got and what do? You get confused, and you got to be up to date on all of these things. And it's just, to me, I don't know why we can't make one standard that covers everybody. It'd be simple, but that's the world, I guess. So one question they asked is, how can an individual become a ResNet certified auditor? Good question. And being an auditor in these things does pay a lot of money. It's really a good steady job, and it's something I think kids graduating out of high school and maybe going to maybe junior college or not, this is something they could do. It's pretty simple.
And it won't be replaced by AI.
No, it will not. So anyone who's interested in becoming a ResNet certified HERS rater can participate in the training offered by them. It can be found on their website again. The courses are offered through the country and are available with remote learning on demand, so it can be taken at the pace of the student, which is great, especially if you're working or going to school. Once the courses are completed and the testing is passed, there is a probationary period where the rater completes ratings while their provider is monitoring their progress and assisting them to achieve proficiency. That provider will continue to offer their quality assurance as they become certified and to become an active rater. Resident also has a robust QA process of 10% of submitted ratings are file reviewed and 1% of submitted ratings trigger an in-person QA visit. I like that. So every 1 in every 10 submitted homes is subject to a file review, and 1 in 100 submitted homes on an annual person visit is required for every rater to remain active. Any infractions will be noted, and major infractions can lead to disciplinary actions and even a probation. Whoops. So they got to learn. They got to learn and listen. Every 3 years, a rater is responsible for requiring 18 continuing education units to remain active. I think that's pretty good. And the fact that you can do it offline, or I mean online, but off the side of going to a building and sitting in a classroom and all of that. And I think that's a pretty good thing to do.
Well, and it ties into their code of ethics. So
Yep.
it's kind of nice to sort of think about the purpose of their code of ethics, which is to basically place in a similar capacity of the Hippocratic Oath.
Yep.
For medical professionals, their code of ethics takes a similar stance to do no harm as well as follow guidelines of professional conduct, honest representation of services, credentials, and fees, and to avoid conflicts of interest and to use resident trademarks and intellectual property honestly. And that's part of that infraction part. So
Right.
we like that they have a code of ethics and then they actually enforce that code of ethics, which is kind of a unique situation.
Yeah, one of the questions I would ask them, and this was a good question that came in, as I said, from a listener, but when they get reviewed by their peers, does somebody else go back to that facility or that home or that building and check it? Or can somebody cheat on it, and then when he goes back and review it, he gives the same answer, and nobody goes to the site to see if it's true or not? I thought that might be an interesting question to give resident and how that works. Because doing it online, you're trusting the person that's doing it, unless you go back and have somebody else certify it and review it. Anyway, that was the question. So, but you mentioned something good about their code of ethics. So I'll let you take that question and answer.
So that's that thing that I was just talking about, but I'd love to sort of switch into the minimum square footage for a room to be considered a bedroom, because that way we can kind of transition away from this code of ethics, which is obviously kind of a cornerstone of their strategy and how they do their work every day. It's sort of their mission, vision, values, and really look at sort of the nitty-gritty details that apparently listeners are really interested in, like myself. So by definition, for a single-family residence, a bedroom is at least 70 square feet. And codes have become looser on this, but it's required to have a closet. And it's so funny because you think, like, why is this a den, and why is this a bonus room, and why is this a bedroom? Well, the closet is the secret. The room must also have a door and another method of regress, like a window. Ceiling height must be at least 7 feet, and it must be temperature controlled if the other parts of the home are temperature controlled. So no loft. Those are not separate rooms. It's not a bedroom.
So what does this do for mini homes?
You know, what a great question. We should ask them. And do they, like, can you rate a mini home? Like, is it a mini rating?
I don't know. But that's a great question. I'd be interested in that. I'll give them a call tomorrow and see if they can give me an answer to that. That'll be good. They talked about the foundations. All components of the foundation and floor are measurements and have insulation values. The walls color all the way to observations about thickness and insulation levels and orientation. The roof type of construction and insulation location and levels. Doors, windows, they all have this. We talk about skylights, air leakage, HVAC, water heating, any renewables or solar items. So water is a separate inspection and program. Ideally, one day they will both happen on every home. So I guess it doesn't, but they do have it. So I wonder why they can't do it on the same visit or same day, or that's another question I guess we'll pose to them.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer.
Yeah, they can call into the show if they're listening. I know I told them I'll get them a copy of the broadcast so they can do that. It'll be really, really interesting to understand those things. Yeah, the mini things. I don't know how they do that, because I've seen Tesla has a mini home. Have you known that? Do you
No,
know
I
that?
didn't. I didn't know
Tesla,
that.
they have, I think, 2 or 3 different models. One looks like a space capsule. It's pretty cool looking.
What?
Yeah, it has a big oval-shaped window that's horizontal instead of vertical. It's really cool, and it's under $10,000. Under 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like an
And that,
Airstream, but for much less money.
yes, yeah. I like that. The Airstream. Yeah, they always look cool.
They do. They have that like retro, but future, but classic. Yeah, I love good Airstream.
Yeah. So I'll check with them on that. That seems interesting. Also, Home Depot, because I was checking into these mini homes, and they're getting to be popular all over the country. A lot of people do it because it's low cost home. You know, they can rent some land cheap or just be a squatter on it. I guess I don't know. Out in a park, but you know, I mean, you can pull off the side of the road and do it. No, but you need to hook up obviously to electric. But you can go solar. You can go off the grid with everything. So that's amazing. But the Home Depot has homes for around $11,000 to $12,000, and you can get different configurations for that. So I would wonder if those are all eligible for the HERS, or does it have to meet a certain criteria? I would assume, and maybe I could be wrong because other people have definitions for assume, but what would I think each of the cities and counties where they would put these little mini homes probably has to have some sort of codes, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, they have to have a code. I mean, if anything that's sort of built in the United States has a code, that's sort of one of those things. But what code it is and what they're, unfortunately, I have no idea, but I find it all really interesting. And like, how could you hold something that's that tiny to the same specifications as something that's like a single family or even a condo residential situation?
Right. It'd be interesting. Those are, I have to tell you, Paulette and Michael were great last week, and they were on the show a couple of weeks even before that. And it's really interesting because we've been getting a lot of calls. I've been getting a lot of calls and emails about the HERS thing and what do we think of it personally. I like their standards. I have nothing negative to say about it. I just always, like you said at the beginning, the enforcement part is what I want to see bolstered. But that goes for everything, whether it's Sigma, whether it's HERS, whether it's NAHB, any of those things. Anybody can make it right the first time, but what happens over time? And if it doesn't meet the same standard, or it falls or degrades, I'd love to see that, but that's just me. And I'm not have the government go in and do everything all the time. But in these cases, when you're buying a home, it's like making sure the roof doesn't leak, make sure there's no gas leak, simple things like that. But same thing with the irrigation system. If you have an out of control irrigation system, you can spend a lot of money on water that you don't know about, especially if you have lateral filled pipes and coming down a slope and you don't have any way to stop it. There's no they call it that goes inside the stem, the shut off little valve, and if you don't have that, it all drips out. So everything that's in your water lines just go underground. You'll never see it. You'll never know until you get your bill. Yep. Anyway, I thought we'd get into some stinky business. And there's a couple things that I've read today and heard about all week. One is the U.S. and Mexico reach an updated water supply agreement, and that was they came out with this a consensus from the Department of Agriculture and State, and it was a strengthened commitment under the 1944 Water Treaty that will improve cross-border water management and provide greater certainty for growers who depend on reliable water deliveries from the Rio Grande. And under the agreement, Mexico has pledged to deliver a minimum of 350,000 acre-feet of water annually to the U.S., and I assume that's going to be clean water, or close to that, as part of a 5-year cycle. And the agreement also includes a commitment for Mexico to fully repay its water debt from the previous cycle. Now, I don't know how much the water debt is, but I would assume it's going to be a lot of money. Do you know that the answer to that? I don't.
I don't, unfortunately, because kind of this has been. It's one of those things where it was back in 1944, and there was that whole water treaty back then, and what's kind of happening right now is interesting, but I don't know a ton about it yet. But I'm really curious to see how it unfolds and how it impacts the Colorado River stuff. Yep. So that all sort of plays together. And
we weren't born then.
No,
we
were not.
I was not there either.
Nope, nobody was there. There was not a single person back in 1944 definitely not. Nobody was alive.
I wasn't even a twinkle in my mom's eye.
No.
Nothing. Didn't get anything. What was I going to talk about? Oh, so they have a new name for the Potomac River. I guess you heard what that is.
Oh, yeah, the Potomac. Oh, the poor Potomac River.
That's a tragedy. All kidding aside, that's a tragedy of what's happening. I was watching the film on the news the other day, and I couldn't believe the pouring out of raw sewage. And then you get a governor and the president fighting with each other whose fault it is and who should fix it. I don't care whose fault it is at this moment in time. I think they need to put a team together to fix it, and then afterwards work on what happened, how did it happen, what did they do wrong, or whoever did wrong, and what do you do so it never happens again? They always fight and point fingers. It's the other side. It's the other side. And this isn't a political issue. It shouldn't be. I don't think.
Yeah, and it feels like everything today is getting politicized. It's a sad, sad thing that happened. And, there's going to be a lot of literal fallout from that sewer line breach. And so, raw sewage is poisonous. It's really, it's horrific, really. And, I understand that it can be, especially with the tweet that was like a month late, it can be taken out of context, but it's still just like, why we just need to address it and not, and who cares if it's a month late? It needs to be like as soon as possible. It would be great if it was a month ago. The second best time is today. Yeah. So that's what we always say is like the best time was long before this was a thing. The second best time is now. And so if we really focus on what needs to be done instead of who did what, I feel like we're going to just be in such a better place.
Yeah, I just think watching television, and I try not to watch any of the news anymore because it depends what channel you happen to be listening to, or I flip around. And when I hear 180 degrees on one station versus the other, and I'm not going to mention who, what, where, I'm not here to judge or be biased to anybody. But I'm just tired as an American citizen to see people fighting with each other instead of putting their brains together and come up with a resolution to a problem.
It's one of those things where I wish we could, let's solve it now. Once we solve it, then we can go back and see who was at fault and who may need to pay extra for it, or whatever the point of figuring out who did it. If the point of figuring out who did it is to ensure that it never happens again, figuring out for that point. But first thing we can do is actually solve the issue that's facing the Potomac and the habitat and the people and all of that. Then let's stop it from happening a second time or hold somebody accountable or all those. Those are important, but they're not urgent. And that's sort of that difference between urgency and importance. And I feel like in today's world, we're so focused on what is most urgent that we often forget about what's important, which are human lives at stake.
Well, it's like bridges. Every time a bridge collapses, somebody thinks, "Oh, well, no, it didn't get inspected, or somebody inspected and didn't do the right thing." It's easier. I always say, even in manufacturing, if you do it right the first time, you design, you come up with good specs, you design for manufacturability, you put on the quality and reliability steps in place, you shouldn't have any problem on a production line. And if you did, you can catch it. And, when I hear about these water breaks, when I hear about a bridge is cracking and breaks and falls down, and, it's a terrible thing. Lives can be lost. Like you said, with this, it's a deadly disease that you can get from this stuff. And it's just sad to see politicians going after each other instead of, forget it. Doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, whatever. Doesn't matter to me. Sit in a room and get all the people who are smart and figure out what to. I see this thing gushing out. Why can't they cap it? Why can't they cap it or tap into it and put in some trucks or something and move it away, some tanker trucks? I don't know. That's not my expertise at that. But
we're not the smartest people in the room trying to figure out the solution, but they exist, and let's get them together. And I know I said human lives are what's at stake, but animals, the flora, the fauna, all of it is at stake.
Yeah.
Oh.
and it's reaching into some agricultural areas and some other things, so that can be deadly as well.
And the economy there, and it's everything. It's all the things.
Yep. I don't know why it's not fixed, but I guess we got to keep pushing and seeing what they do. I know government works slow, but like I said, I think people should put their differences aside and come up with a resolution to make it wonderful for everybody to live. That's the most important factor. Anyway, that's all I got on that stinky subject. So,
well, can we talk about something super positive for just a moment, or at least
Absolutely.
What could be positive in people coming together? It's kind of funny because this is sort of the exact opposite of the Potomac. So both. And this is I feel like this should be historic for some reason, but environmental groups and state water contractors have come together for Senate Bill 872 to help the Delta, really. So I've never heard of those two groups agreeing to anything on the Delta, but the levees are in poor shape and really need to be repaired. And I love that we're not trying to put this on the backs of taxpayers like myself. So I know that eventually there will need to be much, much more investment, but the fact that we're actually doing something about it and we are coming together about something that relates to Delta is major and worthy of news. And I just am really excited to see the groups having consensus on something, or at least on funding. I mean, who knows what will happen as this continues to evolve or devolve as things go along. But in the meantime, I'm really happy to see and give some real credit to Senator McNerney for doing this work. I mean, that's a huge lift.
Absolutely. Like I said, these are the types of attitudes and people that we need to make things better.
Yeah.
And we, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all have, lives. We all want to live a long time. And I just think people need to, again, put the political stuff aside. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know. I'm getting tired of that. Nothing I can do about it is to vote. But you don't know what you're going to get at the end of the day. So all we can do is try to respect everybody as a human being and move forward to that. So. That's all I got. Anything new exciting at United Water?
Really, we're just kind of focused on funding our projects, which is a very, we've got this Santa Felicia Dam Safety Improvement Project, which I know I've talked about before, but with 400,000 people in our watershed, we're really concerned about what happens if that dam fails and ensuring, much like this infrastructure, ensuring that does not happen. So we're incredibly proactive about it. We actually have a shovel-ready project that we're just looking for funding on. So continuing to rattle the cages to say, where's our money? We really need it. We really want to make sure all of Ventura and Oxnard and everybody in between doesn't end up, kind of underwater. That would be horrible. So we really want to make sure that doesn't happen. And we've put the design and the engineering folks to work to make sure that there's a project that's feasible and solves any issues. And we're looking forward to getting that funded and getting that on the road. One thing that's really amazing is that I know that there's been huge storms and a lot of rain and everybody's sort of sad about that, but the snowpack is actually, kind of bouncing back a little bit from it. We really needed that snow, and we're actually getting some. We still aren't where we need to be, but it's definitely like a really nice moment for the Rockies, for sure.
And we feel, my heart goes out to all those people, those eight people who died in the avalanche.
Yeah, that was so sad.
Yeah, and I didn't listen to any news today, but I know there was one lady who was supposed to be buried under 15 or 16 feet of snow. And I don't know, I hope there's some way in the world that God can help her to survive, but I don't know. It's just going to be there over 28 hours, and that's kind of scary. But we pray for her to make that better. Anyway, well, that was a good catch up. So we're going to take a quick break, and we got a great featured guest, and we'll have some great conversation with him. So stick around for the second half, and we'll get into some really good topics. Thank you.
Water is one of the biggest expenses for communities, HOAs, universities, golf courses, and resorts. So keeping those costs under control, especially when rates are increasing while water supplies are being reduced, are often essential to a customer's survival. Managing water requires multiple skills, which is why it's been complicated and difficult until now. AquaTrack brings multiple skills and technologies together to help large system users conserve outdoor water and improve the health of their landscapes. AquaTrack's professionals are certified landscape water managers and certified landscape irrigation auditors. The company offers audit services, upgrade advice, technical expertise, and water use monitoring. We already manage irrigation water for the largest homeowner associations in Arizona, and we're prepared to bring our knowledge and experience to help others, including landscapers and designers. Give us a call and hear how AquaTrack saved one HOA some 430 million gallons of water and $200,000 in annual water expenses. AquaTrack is Arizona-based, and you can reach us at 623-594-8689. That's 623-594-8689.
In an industry where timeliness and efficiency are everything, you need every tool possible to make the most of your day. With SiteOne.com or the mobile app, finding what you're looking for is as easy as a few clicks. Looking for something specific? Use search to find items by keyword or product number. Then narrow it down with filters to quickly zero in on exactly what you need. Not quite sure what you're after? Browse through product categories and explore all the product lines available. Each category is organized, even by industry, so you can quickly navigate to the right items for the job. Subcategories help guide you to the perfect fit without slowing you down. And when you're on the go, the SiteOne mobile app makes searching even easier. Use voice search to find what you need, hands-free. Simply tap the microphone and say what you're looking for. The app does the rest, bringing up the right products in seconds. You can also sort by availability at your preferred branch and instantly see how many units are ready to purchase. If a product isn't available at your preferred branch but is stocked nearby, no problem. You can still send in your order. Your fulfillment branch will get to work right away to make sure the product gets where it needs to be. With SiteOne Online, you spend less time searching and more time keeping your day moving.
Welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Hope everybody's having a good afternoon, good evening, or good morning again, wherever you are calling in. So we appreciate that. We have our special guest here today, and I'm very happy to introduce him. His name is Tyler Fields. He's the Senior Global Director at Water Solutions at a company called Valmont Industries. So, Tyler, welcome to the Water Zone.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Robert. How are you doing this afternoon?
We're doing good. Now, you're out of your base today, right?
Yes, sir. It's 7:30. Well, it's 7:30 here in Eastern Time of the United States. I'm actually out at Perry, Georgia, at the rodeo.
Wow.
Oh, I love a good rodeo. That's so fun. So, what's your favorite sport in the rodeo? Like, are you like
some of my best friends bulldogs? So I guess I enjoy watching the bulldogs.
Yeah, absolutely. You enjoy watching the bulldogs. Noted. Just so everybody hears, he enjoys watching the bulldogs, especially his friends. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Go ahead, Tara.
So, I was surprised you were allowed to be on here. Well, with Robert, like king of irrigation, but I'm really excited to hear from somebody who's kind of more into the agricultural side of things. So I'm out in California on the West Coast doing West Coast ag stuff over here, and I'm really excited to kind of connect with someone who also in that agricultural space. So how did you arrive in the agricultural industry, and what about like sort of the agricultural irrigation industry specifically like intrigued you?
So I grew up outside of Tampa, Florida. My great-grandfather had a dairy and a livestock market down there. And when I was little, they did the buyout, and it just kind of really stayed in the blood for a while, I guess. And so I ended up going to school to get my agriculture engineering degree, and decided that's what I wanted to be, was an agriculture engineer and to work on a large farm. And that's really kind of what drove staying in the ag. I love the cattle business and everything agriculture. And so this was a way for me to be able to use technical expertise to really help, modernize and bring agriculture to next levels and help in any areas that I could.
Well, pretty good. So you're right. It is in your blood. Well, first, I didn't tell you. Congratulations for being elected to the Irrigation Association Board of Directors. And I think that's. I'm glad we have you. And
I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a good organization. What do you feel that you can best contribute to the future success of that? Because we always want good people, and that's why we nominated you and said this is the man.
Well, I appreciate that. I think, Rob, at the end of the day, my background of growing up kind of in the cattle industry and then being an agriculture engineer with the technical expertise. I worked as an engineer for 4 years at an agriculture engineering firm in actually Okeechobee, Florida. And we did a lot of cow-calf and phosphorus removal, zero drainage. And I really did a lot of work with irrigation to reuse stormwater. And I really found my passion for not only agriculture, but irrigation within agriculture. And so I delved off into becoming a Valley dealer in South Carolina. And so that's what really got me into the Valley family. And so for the past 20 years, I've been working with mechanized irrigation from an engineering perspective to being a dealer that I was installing it and working on it for everyday farmers. And so I have kind of front row perspective, if you will, of what our industry goes through. And so that's really what I bring, I think, to the Irrigation Association as a director, is a different vision maybe or ideology of what the end consumer from an ag perspective is actually facing.
So what are some of those challenges? I know I always deviate. Rob always sends me like some really great questions and then I always just turn left. So what are some of those? I know, I'm horrible. I'm so
and
bad.
She's not blonde.
That's fine.
I know.
Well, hey,
definitely not. That's why
there's one in every crowd, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You walk in the room and don't see the sucker, so you better be careful, right?
Exactly.
I think the list could go on, and I don't think we have enough time to really talk about the challenges. But I would say some of the biggest ones that they're facing is you've got high input costs, and then you've got, low output pricing. And so farmers know how to farm. The ones that have diversified, they seem to be, one part of the stool holds it up. And then they still have to keep progressing. And I think that the challenge is honestly at this point, it's cost of doing business. And then the labor side, labor's always a problem. And that's where I think a lot of this, working for Valley, but, all pivot manufacturers, but, I know what we do, obviously, working towards the innovation to try to support that, right, where we can reduce the labor on the farm and allow the farmer to really go after gaining more productivity and have less input.
Well, and I know a lot of people don't realize that farmers don't really set their own prices. They're actually given prices, and then they try to make.
Exactly.
Right. So, and so many people in the world, they just don't get, they're like, oh, well, farmers just set, they're going to decide that eggs are $8. They don't get the choice. Just that's what grocery stores are willing to pay, and then you have to try and make as scrape together pennies to see what cost you can, especially here in the United States where things are more expensive because we have more regulations, we have more things that are required to spend money. But how you were talking about the automation that Valmont kind of helps with, what does that look like, and what are some of those products?
Well, and I'll just step back for 1 second and say, farmers pay retail for everything they buy, and then they sell at wholesale pricing. And so that's, and then they pay freight both ways. And so going back to that, it kind of really helps sums up where they are. But as far as the innovative stuff, this is going to sound possibly a little dull, but, that center pivot was a pretty innovative product 80 years ago. 1947, Frank Zyback had the patent Mr. Daugherty bought that out, turned it into a commercial product and viable for everyday farm use. To me, that's still a pretty darn innovative, because they're at this point in the game, there's still no other way to efficiently irrigate tracts of land the way that a center pivot does.
Yeah, that's definitely it was a really critical point in agriculture and in irrigation in that space. Robert, it's your turn.
So Valmont, for our audience, may not know all the things that your company does. I know you guys are a global leader in vital infrastructure and ag productivity, and you offer solutions and all of these things. What products do you have? I know you're with the water side of it, but you do other things that are kind of uniquely odd to be with Valmont.
So I guess if I go and try to explain my title of Senior Global Director of Water Solutions, I have the honor to be a part of several teams within the organization. And what we deal with is basically we find the water, we get the water to the pivot, we help design the sprinkler package on the pivot, and then we have an irrigation scheduling platform that helps farmers understand when and how much water to use. And so we have a group that's geologists, hydrogeologists, soil scientists, and we work on permitting, regulatory, but we also help with well drilling, help finding water. And then we have engineers that help get the water from the pumping side, hydraulics, to the pivots. And then from there, like I said, we use our software, and we have the applications group that helps get the water to the ground, because we're irrigating the soil, right? We're looking at what the soil can hold, and then we're making sure that there's plenty of water there for the crop to uptake. We adjust based off what crop it is, but we want to make sure that there's plenty of available water in that soil. And if there's water in that soil, we're never going to stress that crop. If there's too much water in that soil, we're going to stress that crop. And so we try to help bring that in and find that happy medium of where, we're putting out just the right amount of water when it needs to be there.
So you're basically taking ET data and combining that with soil moisture sensor data.
Yes, sir. And then historic rain event, we look at weather stations for previous day information. We do look at forecasts, but we let the farmer decide, do I want to bet that it's going to actually rain tomorrow or not? Or in 5 days or whatever it is.
I know we're dealing with that out in the strawberry crops this week. They've definitely been watching them try to reduce all of that water. But with that sort of focus on watering when and how do you guys focus on technology and sustainability in that product offering? So, because if you only water when you need to, that's obviously a much more sustainable practice than watering when it's raining, for example.
Right. And so if I look back at the sustainability side of it, we're helping understand to pump just enough water and use just enough electricity to maximize the output. And that's where the sustainability comes into play. And as you hit on that, within our geology group, we actually have large farms call and say, hey, we want to know what is the groundwater doing in our area and how long is it going to be here, right? And so that's the number one resource. It's the precious resource that we have to maintain and manage. And so they want to know, and we can do aquifer studies and look at it and model what does it look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, making sure that we're managing that water as it needs to be and getting that crop grown like it needs to be.
So does Valmont develop the software for all of that, like a controller company would do, or is that some additional equipment?
So the groundwater would be people. Okay. So we have geologists, professional geologists on staff that do this, and there is some modeling software that we would use and use that to help output, but we have to gather all the data and the inputs to go into it. So it would be a professional service done by a geologist.
Let me just quick follow-up question. How do you compare to other manufacturers of center pivots? What sets you guys aside from the others?
So I believe, well, first off, we brought the pivot to the industry. So we have progressed that. And then if you look at just the technological advances that we've been able to accomplish from Access 365 to do everything from your phone, you look at our icon panels, and we're able to put out we released those, and it was a revolutionary digital panel that came out and allowed us to really put a lot of firmware to where we could have like variable rate irrigation and put that out to where we're only putting the water where it needs to go by turning valves on and off down the pivot. And so I think if you couple all of the facts of the technology advances we've done, but along with our services that we bring, we're a bench strength to our dealers to work with farms from an engineering perspective and from an applications perspective. We bring something to the table that our dealers are able to leverage. And then our number one reason why I believe we're the best, we have the best dealer network out there across the globe. And so that makes a big difference when you have a team out there fighting for your brand and bringing us to that number one spot.
Well, you can't do anything if you don't have friends, right? So
100%.
Definitely teamwork all over the place. It's so funny. Our mission is manage, protect, conserve, and enhance. And so I feel you on like the managing that water is critical, not just for cost, but also to make sure you have it tomorrow. Speaking of
our tagline for Valmont is conserving resources and improving life.
Oh my gosh!
So we're right there with you. We're right there with you.
I love that for us, as it should be. Water and ag always go hand in hand. So
100%.
Speaking of the future, now that I'm kind of getting back to like, oh yeah, I have an interview that we're conducting. Instead of just a chit chat, I know, I'm like, oh right, we're interviewing. I'm not just having like a one-on-one.
I do better off the cuff. It's okay.
Same, clearly.
Well, he's hired. We can't offer him a job. He's already got a good one.
Well,
and their stock went up $8. They're at $463.77. They closed today.
Wow.
That's been pretty amazing around there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Global over there making things happen.
We do our best, but we stay humble. So.
But what are your future growth targets, and how does the company plan to achieve them? So, like, tell us a little bit about your crystal ball.
Well, if I had that, I would probably be playing the stock market and not talking to you about irrigation. Because I think ag is one of those things from a farming perspective, and it's one of the thankless jobs, right? The farmers are the heroes of America. I had a guy tell me one time that agriculture is the straw that stirs America's drink, right? And it's what makes it happen. And I hate to see when things suffer, but as I look at it, there are some positives being done. The good news is irrigation pays. And that's what farmers can rely on. If they have irrigation, they're able to make a crop and get something done. Climate change, there's something real there. There's different weather patterns. They face different crises every year, from a drought to too much water. And so, I think as we're leveraging new technologies coming out, again, what we add to the pivot, it's the one thing that's there all the time. And we bump our head on occasion too, as everybody else does. But as we keep looking into the future, we're looking to how do we improve the life of the farmer with that pivot. And I really think that's where the future sees and what it does, because it's the one thing on the farm that's there for, in a good environment, it's there for 30 years, right? So there's payback anywhere. Payback in 2013 was a year if you were growing corn. Payback now, 7 years, whatever it looks like. I haven't looked at the numbers lately to really see. So I hate to give an exact number. That's what I'll be crucified on from everybody probably is how quick it pays back. But it does have an ROI. And that's the number one thing I think that has to be remembered within the community of agriculture is you have to have a tractor to plant. You have to have a tractor to do things. But that new tractor next year, and I'm not bashing on the tractor companies, it doesn't make you more money, right? There is some modern stuff they do with it. But that pivot, you buy it and you have it, say you paid off in 5 years, you have it for 25 more years, making you money. And that's an asset to that business.
Absolutely.
Did I completely curveball around your question? Was that political enough? Or
No, I loved it. It was great. You're perfect. Okay.
Silly question, how do the nozzles stay clean?
So if you're using groundwater out of a well, 99% of the time that it won't have anything in it. Unless you get to pumping sand or something to that effect, then you'll have some issues. If you are pumping from surface water, there's filtrations that you could put on the out on the suction, and that's something that when you look at it from an engineering perspective, you'll see larger suction than you will discharge because you want very low. You don't want to create a suction, so you don't want to pull the water. You want the water just to flow in, and so the greater area you have, the less velocity you have coming in, the less chance you have of picking up debris. Now, once it gets to the pivot, then you have issues of you look at the new technology of sprinklers, and I'll use Nelson for example. They have this new 30-30 nozzle that you can literally go out there and you turn it, and you can do a nozzle flush or a line flush, all with never taking the nozzle out. And so it makes it pretty dang simple to go out there and just clean the nozzle and then keep rolling.
Yeah. Well, time is money, and you need people to do what they got to do in the time they got. So I think that's a great thing. Do you have any upcoming that you can talk about? Any upcoming product launches or innovations that you're especially excited about and that you can give our listeners and us a sneak peek to? And if you can't, that's okay. I understand that, coming from a manufacturer company myself, as you know. So
yes, sir.
Is there anything special?
Yes, so I go back to what farmers are facing today and trying to pay for irrigation on land that maybe they don't have it today to get those outputs, right? So we just launched our new small field pivot. And so the purpose of launching this small field pivot was to allow for shorter systems going on smaller acreages, 20, 30 acres, to be able to be affordable for that acreage versus buying a full, if you will, a full-size pivot, right? So it's a reduced down, same valley structure, same engineering designs, just kind of brought down a little bit, try to get to where it can be more affordable for the everyday farmer that's trying to irrigate more of their ground. And so that just launched literally last week. So I would say that's probably where we are today is check out that new small field pivot. I'm really excited about it. I think it could be a game changer for some of these small applications.
Especially with ag being sort of compartmentalized and trying to diversify their crops, because the same crops that were growing there, 20 years ago aren't working today. So they're trying to, and they can't just go, okay, I'm going to take this whole orchard and switch it to this. So they're trying, like, can I do a little bit of this? Can I do a little bit of that? So I feel like that's a genius move in terms of addressing those real concerns about, rotation and figuring out what to do with different areas of their land, especially with the soil having different needs and all of that stuff. Oh, great. Yeah. Yes. Why didn't you do that in 1944? That's all I'm asking.
Exactly. Let's wait till 2026 to think about it.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to economics. I mean, you have land. You're a farmer. You're growing a crop. The season's over. What do you do with it? What do you do? You let the land sit, or is there anything else that you can do? Can you some crops are better in the winter, some are better in the summer, and you got to plan for that stuff. And it's tough, like you said. You got the soil issues to deal with. That's a whole other topic. What do you do with the soil? Does it die? Yes, soil can die. And what do you do to fix that? We've had people on from Kellogg's Garden Products and other companies on that. And that's an important factor that you have to consider. So I'm going to ask you a strange question here. So I think you're if I had to rate you on a 1 to 10, I'd give you a 15. And so the president of the country heard about that, and he gave you a call and says, "Hey, I need you to be the czar of water. What are the top 3 things in this country do you think needs to be fixed? Or what would you change?"
Top 3 things. I would probably, number 1, I would look at how do we help make irrigation more efficient on the farm. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to the scheduling and making that something that, we really need to look at and really look at it from, let's grow from a science perspective, if you will, of irrigating that soil. That would be really number 1. Number 2, I would want to look at a czar of water, but without ability for farmers to reduce inputs. It doesn't matter if they have water or not. If they can't afford to farm, then there's nothing, right? So I think you really need to look at how do we really help, and I don't mean bailouts or whatever the term, bridge payments. I mean, let's dive down and fix the problems and really figure out, because food is a national security, right? We have to have it. We have to eat. And so how do we protect that? And I think that needs to be discussed. And then I would probably struggle for number 3 off the top of my head, Rob. You really threw this one on me. But there, I mean, the list could probably go on for 5 or 10 things. But the third thing I would just look at is just, how do we look at helping solve some of the labor issues and things of that sort. So I think those are three good ones. I don't know if tomorrow they'll be my top three, but they're my top three at the moment.
No, but you got to plan it. You got to plan. That's good. So one thing I got to ask. So, how did Valmont's irrigation segment perform during the past pandemic we had? Did it affect you guys?
It did. Obviously, it affected every piece, and it was mostly because of supply issues. Right? We had vendors that were a 2-week lead time turned into a 52-week lead time. We had issues of electronics of chips coming in, right? And so we couldn't get technology out the door. So, yeah, it affected us on our supply chain side very well. Our team really managed through it. They pushed through. We were able to overcome. We were late. We had issues, but we were able to work through those problems. But the demand really was still there, right? Farmers were still farming. Whether the world was shut down or not, farmers were still farming. And we had to adapt to that and really push through.
Well, you're right in what you said earlier about farmers being the heroes. I call it the backbone of this country. You have to have food to survive. And I get tired of hearing different states say, "Hey, we want the cow. We're going to ship all the cows out of this state, and we don't want that. And we don't want to grow alfalfa, and we don't want to do almonds." That's crazy, because then you kill the economy, and what else do you do? I mean, it's a harsh reality that you got to deal with it. You got to plan for it. And I just wish we had more people thinking like you do in Valmont and our company, Toro, to do the best we can and come up with innovative ideas and ways to use water more efficiently. Especially now when they're deciding what are they going to do with the Colorado River. Who's going to get their share of the water? I mean, I've been in meetings
yes, sir.
all week about that, and it's been crazy. No one wants to give up their senior rights, and when the government takes some of the water or somebody deflects it somewhere else, they want to get paid for it. And
exactly.
And it's a terrible proposition to deal with, but it's real. It's happening now, and we got to put something in place that makes sure that we have for the future. Because without it, we're not going to be here.
That's exactly right.
I don't want to see a dust baron around here.
No water, no food.
No.
So I have one final question.
Let's do it.
This one kind of comes from the heart.
So
one of the things. Yeah, this is not. I'm going to bulldog this question. That's what I'm going to do. So one of the things that I know and have experienced is it's very easy to sell somebody something the first time, but it's very hard to sort of keep customers coming back time and time again because they're always looking for the new best thing. If there was something you could tell your customers, the agricultural community, or just our listeners out here, what's that one thing you wish they would walk away from after this interview?
Irrigation pays by driving productivity. We try to get more crop for the drop. By driving productivity and output, we create new efficiencies to make more money.
Excellent. I'm going to tell your boss you know your stuff.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Hey, and welcome to the IA. I know you're a member anyway, but welcome to the board. We appreciate that a lot. And thank you for
I sure
taking
do
the time
look forward to serving.
And hopefully I'll get to meet you at a meeting coming up and enjoy a little bit more conversation with you. And I didn't mean to take you away from your enjoying your rodeo, and I wish I was there too.
You're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine.
Right. You're based there, or are you based out of Nebraska?
I am based in Tifton, Georgia. We have a distribution center down there, and I office out of there full time. And then I travel the world depending on what's going on.
Gotcha. And how can people find out about Valmont? Website?
Valmont.com, valleyirrigation.com, and then local dealers, of course. And on our valleyirrigation.com page, we have a Valley dealer locator, and we're happy to help any way we can.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for agreeing to be on the show. I do appreciate it. And good to talk to you a couple of weeks ago and get this all set up. And anyway, you have an enjoyable evening.
All right. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good night, too.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
All right, bye.
He was awesome, Tara.
Yeah.
Good guy. So, we're about the end of the show. And we're going to say goodbye to our listeners. That's a sad thing. Wish we had a 2-hour show. Maybe we can go to a 2-hour show.
I think
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
An ongoing trial regarding social media addiction continues in Los Angeles as Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified this week. Attorney Matthew Bergman, who is representing hundreds of plaintiffs in a consolidated set of cases, spoke outside the courtroom.
It is our hope and expectation that as Meta and other companies have to bear the economic costs of their decisions to put profits over the lives of children, that will change their behavior.
The young woman who was the plaintiff in the trial sued Meta, which owns Instagram and Facebook, along with TikTok and YouTube. Snapchat and TikTok previously settled out of court. Anthropic is reportedly at odds over how its AI models are being used by the Pentagon. Axios says the company does not want its product used to spy on Americans. If the Pentagon bails on Anthropic, they could label the company as a supply chain risk, which could harm big parts of their business. And Google says Lyria 3 can produce 30-second music tracks with a single prompt. The tech giant